Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on THEOSOPHIA, Esoteric Studies, I am honored to be speaking with Amara Willey. Amara's spiritual path has been a long and winding one, and it has reached many great heights, and today we're going to take an eagle's eye view of some of the things that Amara has done. Greetings, Amara. Great to be speaking with you.
Great to be speaking with you, Hercules. Good evening.
Now, I hear you're opening up a shaman school, and I'm very excited. I love shamanism.
Oh, great. Thank you. Yes. So it's a hybrid school. It's both part of it is online, part of it is in person. So I'll be doing lessons on a teaching platform and check-ins a couple times during the month on Zoom. And then there's a part of it that's in person at my house. So like a all-day mini retreats once a month. And then there'll be a 3-day in-person retreat in Cape May in October.
Wow, that sounds phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're doing that.
I'm sorry?
I'm glad you're doing that.
Oh, thank you. I think I need to turn my sound up.
Okay.
Yeah, it's something I kind of have done in a few different forms. I've been studying shamanism since, I don't know, 1995 or 6, something like that. I actually went to a 6-month shaman school myself in New Jersey that doesn't exist anymore. That was sort of combined with a massage therapy school. So I went because I was interested in shamanism, but I ended up with a certification in massage therapy, which I used a few times. So that was fine. But we learned all kinds of stuff about the body and about it was kind of a body, mind, spirit connection kind of thing. And I have all kinds of other healing techniques that I have collected over the years of Reiki and Qigong and food medicine. And so I'm kind of throwing that all in my medicine pouch, mixing it up and turning it into a 6-month program.
And when will you be accepting students for this program?
So I'm accepting them now. The program starts in May, like mid-May. So I'm in the process of collecting people. There's ways to take the program in like smaller chunks if people are super busy, but yeah, so I'm excited about it.
If you send me information, I will promote it on my sites, and this way people can find their way to you, hopefully.
Okay, I will definitely do that.
Now, we had a conversation recently about theurgy.
Yes.
Theurgy, for those who don't know, is reaching up to something higher, and I look at it as the highest you can conceive, and that changes over time, and then connecting with it, and then anchoring it here in our reality. Most people do it in an object or in a statue, as it was done in antiquity. Some people do it into a medium, and the medium then communicates. And some people anchor the energy into themselves. And that's my preferred method. I like reaching up to the highest, anchoring in myself, and then proceeding with my life and bringing that energy here. And you had said that you also practice various forms of theurgy, and I'm really interested in hearing your experiences and your understanding of theurgy.
All right. Thanks. I'm excited to be talking to you about this today. So this is one of the main practices that my group Hands of Change engages in our higher energy workings. So we call it drawing down the moon or drawing down the sun. We also call it invoking or evoking. So the way we differentiate between invoking and evoking is, and different people have different definitions of this. This is just ours. So invoking is bringing spirit into yourself and channeling and speaking the words of the goddess or the god. Evoking is, as you mentioned, bring deity into the space or into an object in the space, like a candle or a statue or something like that. So we mostly do invoking in our higher energy circles, which are semi-private events. So once people have been to some of our classes and our events, we invite them to the semi-private events. And this is something that I've loved about Hands of Change from the beginning. So we pull down into the priest and the priestess the energies of the deities that we're working with for that ritual. So, and I've taken this practice into Full Spectrum Magic Lab, which is my virtual ritual ceremony space that we also meet on the solar holidays. But it's more of a quantum physics version of Wiccan ritual. It's kind of, I kind of think of it as the crossroads between quantum physics and pagan practice. So what we do is we invoke whatever spirit we're working with, and usually for me, that's through my crown chakra. I feel the energy that coming down through the transpersonal point into my body. And then I speak whatever words the goddess has for the congregation. And that's kind of like almost like a sermon or but we call it the charge of the goddess. There's a poem that's known as the charge of the goddess that's by various people, but most famously Doreen Valiente or Starhawk made a more modern version of it. And that's not typically what comes out of my mouth. It's more about like the specific guidance that somebody would need for the next 6 weeks till the next solar holiday, having to do with the current astrology and having to do with what's going on in our community and our world.
I've been very curious about your introducing the quantum fields into magical practice, and maybe if we have time, I'll ask more questions about that. Why the solar holidays rather than the lunar holidays?
So one could do either, and really this just had to do with how Hands of Change started, which was that we were filling a niche that wasn't there weren't full moon circles that people could go to publicly. So we created public full moon circles, and then we made our Sabbats private. Traditionally in Wicca, it's the other way around. So, but if you had, and we didn't do higher energy like invoking or calling down the moon or sun in a completely public event, because we had a couple of higher energy events, and what happened was we had a couple of energy accidents where people passed out or threw up or whatever. So we're like, okay, we got to make sure people have some baseline knowledge of how to, meditate or ground or center themselves or whatever, so that that never happens again. That was like, 25 years ago. But so that's just how we ended up with doing the solar holidays. It's not specifically because of anything. It's more just kismet, which is really how many decisions that I make about magical stuff happen. It's like, well, this is convenient, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, that was actually a good decision for some other reason.
I like mixing. My background is I'm Greek. And when I was, born in the 50s and then in the 60s, Greece was a very alien, culture. It was very much a step into the past when you went to Greece. So I was exposed to that, a lot of the folkloric elements and the folk magic and so on. And then here I was introduced to the mythology and the religions and, all that. So I have that as part of me. And another part of me, it turns out, came from New Thought. My father used to expound his philosophies when we were growing up, and I just thought it was my father's way of looking at the world. And only later, long after my father had gone, where I was studying American forms of magic, I guess, for lack of a better word, that I found New Thought. And it's like my father's quoting New Thought. All the stuff he gave us was from New Thought. So a lot of me has been influenced at first inadvertently by New Thought. And then as I learned more, I incorporated more and more of the ideas, and with them a lot of New Age material. And my study of Theosophy when I was much, much younger also led to a lot of New Age ideas, because Theosophy helped usher in the New Age. So I'm jiggy with using all these newfangled concepts with what I do from antiquity, and it's very fresh to see other people use it. How has your practice strengthened or expanded since you started using these currents?
Right. So I'm with you. I started out with very traditional Wiccan, and even I did a lot of Greek magic myself. I studied a lot of old Greek texts at Rutgers University, and then I was very much like, okay, I got to do the thing exactly the way it was done. But you know what? We don't all know a
No.
lot of what the way it was done, because not every, like, people didn't write everything down. They didn't. So so I guess I tripped over Napoleon Hill and those other sorts of new thought people a decade ago, and been reading a lot about quantum physics in the last, I don't know, whatever, 5, 6 years. And it just sort of, it's like, well, that makes sense. And it all sort of fits together. Like I don't see them as different things. Like it's just the magical technology behind the magic that we have learned over from the antiquities or from ancient lore. This is why it works, right? That's kind of how I look at it. So when we do the full spectrum magic lab, the virtual ritual, we don't cast a circle. We use the form of a tesseract so that we can
Wow.
create magical space in time. And it's a 4-dimensional object, right? And then everybody, no matter where they are on the planet, can hook into some aspect of that tesseract and feel the magic of the space. Because I know I've talked to a lot of people who are like, I don't really like virtual ritual or whatever. I can't feel the energy. It's like, you can feel the energy. Trust
Mhm.
me,
Yes.
if you do it in the right way.
So it's a form of like techno shamanism or
Yeah,
cyber
techno
magic.
mage, right?
Yes.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I'm very excited by this because a lot of people that have spoken to me who are looking at the more traditional forms, they really can't identify with all the harvest festivals and things like that because our life isn't centered around them, except maybe Thanksgiving or something. So
Right.
they're not really in tune to the wheel of the year and things like that. So Athena and I have decided to welcome people into our home again. We started a few months ago, and we've been now talking about, do we do the regular lunar thing or just do like a monthly thing, mid-month tied into the zodiac, which even if you don't want to get into astrology, there's a lot of symbolism, millennia of human imagination woven into these images, that all of us can resonate with because they're in our culture. And of course, with me would be the labors of Hercules, but it doesn't need to be. That would just be an example that we give.
Right.
So we're looking at that, and we're at this point leaning more towards a solar or astrological wheel as something that's a little bit more urban, even though we don't live in an urban area right now. It would still be a little bit more understandable and accessible to people rather than the harvest festivals of Wicca.
Yeah, I love that. And I think we're sort of evolving into that too, even though we're using the 8 solar holidays of the year. We're really pulling in a lot of like astrological, astronomical energies. So we're not, like, Beltane isn't about dancing the maypole when you're meeting online, right? And honestly, I've never really liked dancing the maypole. It's not my thing. Um, when I was 9, I was in England. I saw schoolgirls dance the maypole as part of their their culture, and they danced it perfectly in, and then they danced it perfectly out, and all the ribbons unwound, and pagans can't do that. So, I have this like perfectionist idea of what the maypole should be. But what we celebrated yesterday was the gift of Beltane,
Mhm.
and it was really more about, first of all, the words of the goddess. And so Freya was the goddess that was speaking and that I drew down, or that I invoked. And then her her sermon of the Charge of the Goddess was really about like the gifts of the season and being present in the moment. So the gifts of the scent of the flowers are their gift to you. The green grass that's soft under your feet are their gift to you. So it's kind of like trying to draw people back into nature, but the nature that we're experiencing, as modern Americans in a suburban or urban environment, not as, people who are out digging around and making, crops, because most of us don't do that.
Now, the circle that, speaking about gifts and giving, the circle that you created initially was very giving. I mean, you gave a gift to local pagan folks who couldn't celebrate, publicly. I remember before Ishtarfest, there were the little festivals in the parks. And Athena and I used to come to those, and again, it was a very giving environment. You gave of yourselves, you gave of your knowledge, you gave to people things that they didn't have, and you also gave back to a community. A lot of groups, although they'll do something now more so than before, a lot of groups will give something to their community when they have their events. But hands is what, at least in this particular area of the United States, hands is what started that. And you guys gave to a lot of causes and helped your communities grow, not only your pagan or Wiccan or magical community, but the community at large.
Yeah, we definitely have as one of our precepts, or one of it's in our charter, that service is part of our dedication to Goddess. And we actually, when we create a ritual, nobody sees this except the people writing the ritual. But instead of writing, priest, priestess, or we say in service, and then we list the names of the clergy. We don't, because it's more about, we are about giving back, right? So we do a litter pickup once or twice a year. We, before the great pause, which is what I call the pandemic, we did a lot of collecting of, different things at the different holidays. So like coats at Yule, or canned goods at the harvest festivals, or whatever, to help the community. Since we have gotten back from the great pause, which has been sort of a little bit of a slow opening, we haven't really taken that back, but I'm sure we will find other ways to give back to the community, even if that isn't one of them. And honestly, that just became a logistical issue, because somebody has to take the coats or the canned goods or whatever,
Right,
to the food bank, and we don't necessarily have the staff to do that. So, but like for Ishtarfest this year, and we've done this the last few years, since Ishtarfest has been virtual during the pandemic, and last year it was hybrid, and this year it's going to be virtual again, June 2nd through the 4th. We are having like a place you can, so we're having the opportunity to donate to the UN's World Hunger
wow.
Foundation, so that to feed people, because they feed people in the region that we're celebrating, which is the Mideast, but also like the Ukraine, or wherever it's needed. So Hands of Change will make a donation, and we also open it up to the people who are joining us for the festival to make donations if they like.
I'm involved in some local initiatives, so I've been inviting people on Facebook, I guess, where my primary community became during the Great Pause. And people have been, joining in and wanting to do things in their communities, or wanting to contribute to whatever my projects are. I too believe in giving to the community. The heroic path of the Greek heroes is one of finding your talent, cultivating that to an absurd degree, and that's your magic power, your superpower, your divine gift, whatever you want to look at it, because that's where the secret to your destiny is. So even though the Delphic Oracle will say pan metrion ariston, in all things balance, the hero path in Greek mythology is not about balance at all. It's about imbalance, and finding out who you are through whatever your gift happens to be. So having an aspect of community service, because the heroes did serve their communities, not only in life, but after death, their tombs were maintained, and a serpent would come out, which was thought to embody the hero's essence or their soul. And the hero was said to return when the community needed them. And there are many stories, even into modern times. I remember hearing stories from World War II, where Greek soldiers swore up and down that they were stuck. There was no way they were going to escape. And a big muscular person that they knew was Hercules came down and rescued them. And in antiquity that happened. And one of the people who did that was Milo of Croton, who invented bodybuilding.
Oh, wow.
There are some historic accounts of he used to dress up like Hercules whenever there was a war or raid against them and go out there and frighten the enemy, because again they believed that the gods were capable of coming and interfering in our affairs. So that lives on in a community service in any way one chooses to give it. And I also, a lot of people feel they're not, what they do is not enough. And we try to encourage them to operate on whatever their own circle of influence is. If it's your own life, try to make your life better. If it's your family, try to make your family's life better. If it's a label you've given yourself tribally or spiritually or whatever, try to make that circle better. Your local community, and you could draw the circle as small or as large as you want, but that's your world. So be a force for good, be a force for giving in your world, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen. And I love that example of the bodybuilder and the coming and saving the soldier, because that's kind of a form of theurgy too, right?
Yes, it is.
It's like embodying this archetype of the hero or the strong person who saves the day. And like sometimes we really, even if you don't have a practice of invoking spirits and channeling, and I mean, you can do that with archetypes in your own life where you just say, okay, like you can stand in the superhero pose with your fists on your hips for a few minutes, and you're going to feel more powerful because you've opened up your heart chakra, and you can just kind of take that energy into the day. Or, meditating on a deity or an angel or an element, you can kind of take that energy with you, like a tarot card for the day, and embody that spirit. It doesn't have to be woo woo like the highest form of deity. I mean, that's fun, but that also, I think you have to be at a certain level of practice to be able to hold the energy of deity, because it's a very fast vibration. So,
Yes.
but you were, like your definition of theurgy, where people just reach for the next higher level, that's perfect, right? Because you can do that in all kinds of ways. You can, imagine that you're an animal and sort of shapeshift in that way, and get some, powerful lion energy, or some wolf strength, or some, swan grace or whatever into your life by pulling on that archetypal energy.
And it's a valid thing, not only in magic, but in acting. I took a couple of acting classes once way back in the, I guess, 80s. And they had us doing exercises where we had to embody different animal qualities. And I thought of totemic shamanism, and essentially it's the same, type of thing. And, in a lot of books, so what they believed about animals, they had these spiritual qualities that the actual animal obviously doesn't possess, and has had qualities, but it doesn't matter, because it wasn't the quality of the actual animal, it was the idea of the animal that they were tapping into, that archetypal energy. And yes, that's a very good example. I believe that there's a lot of power in these images. And unfortunately, we're taught a lot of times to be victims.
Mm-hmm. Oh
And
yeah, our society completely, and like either you're not supposed to like everybody asks everybody, how are you? And you're either supposed to be fine, or else that's the opening to start complaining about anything that's wrong in your life, which in magical terms, that's just praying for the future you don't want, right?
right, yes, definitely. and very much a part of modern New Thought, and like with the law of attraction. And it's a powerful thing, the law of attraction. A lot of people in high places in our society believe in it. So once you become familiar with its terminology and the thought process that goes into it, you can't help but spot it, in the verbiage of people in different levels of society. And the level it's coming from shows you that this is a powerful technique indeed, if it's being voiced at such a high level in society.
Yeah, absolutely. That whole Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich thing is very popular amongst, and another thing I've been doing, because, I apparently just need to keep myself busy all the time.
Me too.
I'm like the little Energizer bunny. So I've been running what I've been calling abundance wishcraft groups, which is 40 days of spiritual practice in abundance. And it's, some of it is the, law of attraction, Napoleon Hill, and just other stuff that I discovered over time of how to to open yourself. Because I think
Right.
that's what service is about too. It's about not getting stuck in your own little world, but allowing spirit to come through in the in the idea that we have more to give, right? There's this infinite abundance around us, and when we give a service of money or whatever, we're inviting more of it to come through. We're just allowing the universe to work through us, and we become the eyes of abundance look out through our eyes. That's really what I see service is about. It's about participating in the universal flow.
I believe that as well, and I'm constantly focusing on things that I want to manifest, or I want to create, or I want to have access to. And it's amazing because a few days ago, I've been talking about something for like months. I've been just talking about it and, thinking my ideas on it, and not much is going on with it. But again, I don't give up, because I know that eventually something will happen. And then one day recently, 4 avenues to what I've been talking about opened on the same day. It was like the whole day was one big synchronicity. And after the doors opened, I was on the phone, connecting. And I don't know exactly how this will play out, but exactly what I was imagining now allowed itself to be accessible to me in one day. So I thought that was proof enough that this type of stuff works if you operate in it. And like you said, if you focus on what you don't want, you'll get what you don't want, because that's what you're expecting. So if it happens to you, you'll accept it rather than refusing it and waiting for something else.
Right. So I kind of think of it as like a universal puppy. The universal puppy's always trying to please us, and it listens to what we're saying. And so if we're saying, hey, I want a liver flavored bone, it's going to bring us a liver flavored bone. And if we want a, chocolate bone, it'll bring us that. And not everybody cares for the liver flavored bone, but the puppy doesn't care. It doesn't get hurt. It just goes, oh, not that right thing. I'll go back and get
And get
something else
something
for
else.
you. Yeah. I think I've kind of gone off into many tangents, though.
No. There are no tangents here. There's conversation, and again, you're always doing such wonderful things that it's great to catch up and to discuss these things, because they don't often get discussed unless you're holding a class or having it as a podcast category. And I really think that they should be discussed more. And a lot of it isn't even magic, in the conventional sense. A lot of it is basically what you're telling yourself. So
Sure.
you don't have control over everything that happens to you, but you have control over how you respond to it. So some things you will be overwhelmed by. That's just the way life goes. However, most of the things that happen to us, we choose whether it'll be a horrible thing or whether, it's all right, no big deal, that's happened before, and I'll deal with it. And even in that simple thing, if you can brush it aside, the torture that you'll go through, wrestling with it or feeling victimized by it is gone. So that's not magical in like a grand sense, but it depends on your attitude and how you look at things. Our news media teaches us to take offense at everything.
Right.
If you're going to be offended, you walk around in that energy, and everything's going to offend you, not only things going on in the news where offense is like the art of communication, but in your daily life too. Somebody, if they do something, they'll disappoint you, and you'll be outraged about the disappointment, and you'll remember past harms and things like that, and before you know it, you're in this like really horrible hell of constant victimization and shame and anger and anguish, and who wants to swim in that if you could avoid it? And none of that mental activity does any good for you.
No, and this, what you're talking about really is brain chemistry and neuroplasticity. We train ourselves to look for specific things. So there's like 400,000 bits of information available to us at any particular moment. And our brains, which are really awesome, can only accept about 2,000 bits of information. So whatever we tell our brains we're interested in is what we're looking for. And so if we tell our brains that like life sucks and all this bad stuff's happening, then that's what our brain is going to be finding. And if we retrain our brains, change the neural pathways, we can look for, the dollar bill on the ground, or the, somebody being really nice to us, or the lucky chance that we had, or the 4 great things that happened today, that kind of thing. And I call that 2K thinking, because we only have 2,000 bits of information a moment. So we get to choose what 2,000 bits we want.
Very, very true, and very, very wise. Also, our brain gets stuck in other expectations. I remember when I used to lift heavy weights when I wasn't in my 60s, and I used to go to the gym and do all this like heavy lifting. I got stuck one time. I couldn't get past 300 pounds. I got like 298, and that's all I could do. I could do a few of them. And then one day somebody distracted me, and I thought I was paying attention as I was putting the weights on. I did my regular exercise, and then taking them off, I realized that I put 330 pounds on the barbell, and I did it without thinking about it. So whatever was preventing me from getting to 300 or beyond was in my head, and once I did it, I was able
right. And that's exactly how abundance stuff works, because or really anything, healing, relationships, because we start believing that things aren't possible because our experiences in the past is that didn't work, or that never happened, or I've always been poor, or nobody loves me, or whatever it is, I'm always sick. And then that's what we believe. We don't believe that there's this other possibility because we haven't experienced it yet. But when we start, I love that barbell example, because that's exactly it. When we experience that it happened, like that now works for you, because you knew you could do it, and so you did it, and then you realized you did more than you thought.
And that's it. Once the thought is broken, then it becomes possible. And I started looking for other areas in my life where a thought was what was keeping me away from whatever it was that I wanted to do or be or experience.
Right. And that's everything.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So yeah, so I guess I'm trying to think how to bring this kind of back to some of the theurgy practices that
these are we live in stories.
right.
Like the myths, like Joseph Campbell pointed out and Jung pointed out, we live in these timeless tales, endless variations of them. And sometimes the protagonist is clear, so we live with like classical myths. And sometimes it's not so clear. Discovering whose myth you're living is pretty easy, because we go back to it again and again. The divine likes to look in mirrors. So it could be that you're addicted to mystery novels, and that's, you're drawn back to that experience over and over and over again. And you're in a story when people stop being people and they become categories, like all women or all men or all Greeks or all bosses or all, whatever. Then you're no longer in reality, you're in a story. and you cast that story, or part of you casts that story to give you predictable, results. And that's why people wind up in same patterns. They'll leave a job and find that the new job is just like the old job, or they'll leave a relationship and find out the relationship is just like the old relationship. Well, it's not, but in their mind, which creates the reality, it is, because that's a story that they're, stuck on. And until you recognize that you're in a story and that you accept that you don't have to be, then you're just going to keep living the same thing over and over and over again, and you're stuck. And I discovered how powerful that is, because people are attracted to songs that talk about what their story happens to be at the moment. People are attracted to types of TV shows or specific heroes that are telling the tale that they're, like, you want to figure things out, then what do you call it, Sherlock Holmes, then SVU, or I don't know if that's the name of the show, I don't remember, but there are all sorts of entertainments where they keep bringing you back to the same story essentially over and over and over again. And I found that that's an easy way to figure out where you might be, because you keep going back to that story by choice. Why would you go back to murderers and things like that by choice?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is fun. I love mysteries, but I can't really watch them on television anymore, because I find that they get into my dreams and then I have nightmares. And so I keep I started out super sensitive and I keep getting more sensitive. So yes, I can't really do that anymore, because if there's guns in the stuff I'm watching on TV, there's guns in my dream, and I don't like that. Because then it's really scary. But one of the things that I have been playing around with in my own practice, which stems from what I refer to as my 15 minutes of enlightenment, which I think I've shared with you before, that I was driving in my car one day, and all of a sudden the car didn't exist, and I could see the road through the car, and I could see, I was the car, and then I was flying, and I kind of understood the car to be this metaphor for moving rather than being a physical object. So what I've been sort of playing around with is that there is only one being, and that's me, and I see myself in every other person. So whenever somebody's annoying me, it's just me annoying me. So there's something, so I've sort of stopped seeing there being individuals. And I guess it's sort of recognizing the divine in every person, right? Seeing myself as the divine, and then seeing you as the divine, or my son as the divine, or, the checkout person as the divine, because we're all just one person.
I've been there. I know exactly where you are. And it's the same mechanism that exists in Dream. Everybody is you in Dream. So all the characters are different. They seem to interact, and there seem to be all sorts of things going on. But once you realize that it's all you, and you get past the, oh my God, my brain can create these type of 3D hologram, realities every night, many of them with no problem, then it becomes, yes, it's you know that it's your reactions that you're reacting to, and not to what's actually going on, and that what's actually going on is beyond you, because you don't have enough senses to feel what's actually going on. So even on a scientific level, this is an illusion of some sort that we're living in as best we can. And yeah, on an energy level, we're all energy, and science has showed us that as well. So whatever it is that's going on, you can't not be part of the universe, so.
Right. I think you're the one who said to me that we are the gods dreaming.
Yes, I believe that.
Right. So, I mean, in some ways, I sort of think of the physical form, or this plane of existence, as being like the shards of discarded, but like we're just the litter, or the loose hair, or whatever that the gods are it's trickled down to this plane, and so none of this is really in any way important. We're just here for some brief instant before the gods get the dustpan and clean it up, or whatever it is that happens.
I've been there too. I look at it a little bit differently now, that whatever we do, whether we intend it or not, is in service to the gods. If we live unconsciously, we act out the stories, because these are the stories of human existence, throughout the time, and we live these tales and their cultural variations, and in our individual variations of the stories. So we're still part of the gods, living through that and resolving these things, just like we resolve these things in dreams. And if we're conscious, we can affect the dream by changing the story, because just like we're stuck in stories, the gods are stuck in their stories too. In fact, we know the gods by the stories that they're stuck in. So we can somehow help the gods get past their like ingrained patterns that go on and on throughout time. So I'll probably see it a different way in a few years. It changes what I see, but that's what I'm seeing right now.
Right. No, I like that. Thanks. It's interesting. I always enjoy talking to you, Hercules, because
I enjoy talking to you too.
we're always sort of like vibrating in some kind of similar path, even though we might have different thoughts about it at the time. And I think that's really the beautiful thing about the spiritual life, is that your thinking does change. It's not static. It's like more information comes, and you kind of have new realization. Like I had this 15-minute experience 5 or 6 years ago. I'm still kind of thinking it through. And I just read something about a mystic who had it was the guy who invented Aikido, Morihei Ushibi. I can't pronounce his last name. I can't do it. But
I'll look up originator of Aikido or founder of
yes,
Aikido.
that guy. he had 3 visions in his life. He had a vision, and then later on in life, he had a couple more visions. And I was like, oh, good. I thought that was my only vision I was going to have. It was so short. So I'm like, okay. So now I'm like open to the idea that I might have another moment of enlightenment or another vision at some point that, which was extremely cool. It's like, it lasted so short, but it was like, oh, wow, this, like, the world is completely different than what I thought. And then somebody said, well, did you try to get back to it? And I'm like, well, no. Like, it's just, these things happen. You don't get attached to the happenings. It's just,
Right.
It happened. Okay, I'm experiencing that in whatever way and understanding it until something else happens, which may or may not happen.
And they come in groups sometimes. I remember the whole oneness thing, fortunately I was young when that came, just through meditation and contemplation. I just felt the oneness of all things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, I'm one with the universe, and then the next thought, it was everything is one with the universe. And then the next thought was you can't not be one with the universe. So whether we're aware of it or not, whatever this is, and I honestly don't know exactly what this is. It's fun to speculate. I'm very much a part of it, even though I don't understand what my part may be. I'm here, and there's a reason I'm here, and there's a reason we're doing this. We might not know the reason, but it's ultimately of use. Otherwise, it wouldn't be happening. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this experience.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I love all of the stuff that I get to do, and sometimes I psych myself out and I'm like, oh, I got to work harder, or I'm not doing the right things. And then I'm like, where did that come from? Like, that's not what I believe. I believe that I'm always doing the right thing, and that sometimes the right thing is doing nothing, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes rest is the right thing, or, picking up my son's girlfriend at the train station is the right thing. Like, it doesn't always have to be some woo, so important right thing. It's like, I still got to cook dinner. The garbage has to get out of the house. Like, those are all, sometimes napping is the right thing. It's just, trusting that things unfold the way they're supposed to is hard for humans, because we've been trained that we have to make things happen. We have to work hard. We have to get A's. there's something wrong with us if we don't do the thing. And I don't know that I really think that's true. I think that, resting is as much worshiping God as any other thing.
Oh, I'm right there with you. I think it's part of our social conditioning that you have to be useful, that you have to measure up to a standard, that you have to be able to please other people by being the way that they expect you to be, and then there are scripts on how to be the ideal, whatever. And people abuse that by showing you in a mirror that you're never measuring up, you're never hitting the mark. What's wrong with you? You can't be this, and this is what you need to be because, whatever your gender, your age, your sexual orientation, whatever the standard happens to be. There's like a social image of what normal is or what the standard is. And then if you deviate from that, you're upsetting the reality around you and you're bad, and you need to be corrected and you need to be re-educated and, whatever. But that's pretty scary to me. I like the warrior ethic because that's part of the hero's path, and that's something that I put a lot of store in, and I do admire people who've given of themselves to protect us and keep us safe and free. But I realized listening to the ethos that it's another form of slavery too, because they're the same standards, the same exactness, the same measurements, and so forth. So once I began seeing that it's like a system to keep us on script and controllable, I stopped caring as much, where I measured up in someone's eyes, or, whether I was good enough or enough, or, whatever enough, because it doesn't matter. When I'm lying in my bed at the end of life, if I'm still cogent and conscious, that won't mean anything anyway. I work with people who are in their beds and not getting up. And what they were concerned about was good memories, reliving them and sharing them. And then they were plagued by regrets. And they weren't big like regrets. They were not having told somebody how they felt, not having done something when they had the opportunity, not having explored something, because they were afraid what people would think. And those are the things that occupy the thoughts of those who are not going to be here for very long. So I resolved to live my life as if that was always the case, that maybe now I'm on a bed not getting up and I'm thinking back, and I'm generally happy, so maybe I had a happy life.
Right. But I think it's a choice. I think the happiness is a choice. So I don't know what to do with, I don't have regrets. Like I'm pretty good with what happened with my life. Some of it was a little bit chaotic or not the way I might have chosen, but it happened. So,
Right.
All right, that's fine. I'm where I am. It's all good. Could my life be better? Sure, anyone's life could be better. Could it be worse? Oh yeah, it could be a lot worse.
Mhm.
So, I've kind of accepted, but like my sister is very regretful that she never had children. She's older than I am. And she says she feels that every day. And I just feel so bad for her. Like, I don't know what to say to her about it. Like, what did you say to the people that you were working with who had, regrets about not talking to
There
people?
wasn't anything I could say. I understood regret, but I can honestly say that I made the best decision I could with who I was and what I knew and at the time. So I assume that others the same, even if it's a bad decision, based on who they are at the time and what they've experienced, what they know, they're trying to come up with the best outcome. So I just believe that that's generally true. And I don't believe people, although there are some people who do like deliberately try to, harm other people, I don't assume that the people I come in contact with are in that
Right.
category.
Right.
Um,
I guess the practice that I have used in the past now, I'm sort of using this as a way to to come to a place of how to help my sister who I love. Something that I've done in the past is just see people as whole and perfect the way they, like they may see themselves as broken, but I can hold the space of um, knowing that they are whole and holy and healed, and that as long as I see them that way, they have the opportunity to become that. And I think that's a little bit like the abundance stuff that we're talking about, but because we're all one thing, right? It's all oneness. We can do that for each other as well as doing it for ourselves.
Where I come into some, I guess, difficulty with trying to do that, and I do that as well. But sometimes people who think poorly of themselves in one or more areas of their lives, or have regrets, they distrust any positive feedback.
Well, you don't have to tell them that you're thinking that,
Right.
right? You can just hold that circle of light, and they have a choice of whether to, their spirit has a choice of whether to step into it or not. Like, they don't have to. You're not forcing them to step into the light, but if they would like to step into the light, you're holding the light for them.
Good point.
This is not exactly the way I thought this whole conversation would go, but I'm loving it.
It's okay. We're not in class, we're just having conversations, so it's okay. Did you imagine that you'd be doing what you're doing at this particular point in your life? Did you know on some level, like I'm finding now that the things I'm doing now, I did imagine them as a child, a lot of them. I did imagine my talking to people, my more theatrical exploits, my occult adventures, being in occult books, having written things. On some level, from the time I was very small, I had inklings of that in my play. And it's amazing, I'm finding now in my 60s, looking back, how much was there from the beginning. And it took a lifetime for it to come out and develop a lot of it. But I'm really, really amazed at some of the things I remember saying. Even now I'm focused on the Melkart of Tyre, and I'll be talking about that at Hands of Change. Melkart of Tyre, I might not have known the name, but this focus on like a particular type of deity who was Hercules but wasn't Hercules. I can remember my earliest play, that coming out. And then when in grammar school, I read Herodotus, and Herodotus talked about the Hercules of Tyre. That's when it started, dawning on me that this is what I was looking for and what I was talking about. And I started doing some ancestor work, which was very interesting because I thought that I had gone way past my programming. And the ancestor work showed me that, no, I'm an apple that fell at the bottom of the tree, very near its fruit. So all the progress I made was an illusion. And then I had to think about this, what part am I playing in perpetuating not only genetically but mimetically all this distilled experience that is in me, that's a very obviously continuation of the past from what I know of my ancestors. And there were even two, Menandros and Kostas Kermidas, who were wizards of sorts, and they were called Magi. And one of them made it to the folklore, the other one's been forgotten. But it was only like a couple of generations ago, in my grandfather's and great-grandfather's generation. So again, it doesn't bother me like it did when I first discovered that I haven't gone very far, but it's an intriguing thing, and it opens up a whole different dimension. Like, am I living or am I being lived?
Right.
Don't have
I
any.
mean, I think there are sort of genetic predispositions to certain types of career choice, if you will. So my dad, before he met my mother, was a minister. He had a crisis of faith and he left the ministry. So in some ways, the whole priestess thing sort of follows in his footsteps, because that's really what I've been doing for the last 27 years is I've been part of Hands of Change, and I've been a priestess. I've had lots of other, jobs to make money in the interim, but I've also made money from doing magical things and teaching. When I was a little girl, one of my earliest memories is that I had two imaginary friends named Gig and Gog. And what I learned as we started playing around with the Sumerian mythology and creating Ishtarfest is that there are two protective spirits in Sumerian mythology named Gig and Gog. So I think I have been doing this my whole life. And certainly when I was a teenager, one of my favorite sci-fi series was Witch World, which is Andre
Mhm.
Norton.
I remember that.
And I used to, make up all kinds of stories and costumes and spells and all kinds of stuff that had to do with, which I, was playing for me. I didn't think of it as uh, magical acts or doing what I do now, but it was definitely of my interest to be doing that kind of stuff. Making mud pies and potions and stuff was certainly interesting to me when I was younger, but I didn't think about the role that I would be taking as a priestess. And so this is another Sumerian word, Sangha, which is a specific class of priestess that's an administrative priestess, which is kind of what I think I do because I'm very good with math and numbers and finances and stuff like that. And so for me, like organizing a festival or managing the budget or like that kind of stuff is very Sangha priestess energy. I love doing, I love running a ritual and moving energy and creating experiences for people, but I also really like just doing the things that need to, the photocopying and whatever it takes to make something physical happen on this plane. When I first did my first initiation, there was a dedication, and I took it out of Starhawk's to ride a silver broomstick, and it was like this
I remember.
dedication where all of my future lives I'm dedicating to being a priestess. And I'm like, this is a really heavy duty thing because you're not just committing to it for this life. And then I was like, you know what? I've always been a priestess. Every lifetime I've been a priestess. I'm a priestess now. I'm going to just keep it. This is fine. I can do. And then I was like, what if other people are freaked out by this dedication? Should people be taking this? I don't know. So whatever, but I'm sure whoever needed to take it took it.
And on that note, I looked at the clock. I want this conversation to continue, so we'll have to schedule another date. How can people enter all the doors that you've opened? So if people want to get in touch with Hands of Change, if people want to get in touch with Ishtarfest, if people want to get in touch with your new shamanic school or your other practices, where would they?
Right. So all of my personal programs you can go to www.amarawilley.com, and Wiley has 2 L's. And I think it's spelled on the screen if you can, I think that will show up. And then Hands of Change is handsofchange.org. And on Facebook, it's Hands of Change New Jersey or Ishtarfest. And you can find those on Facebook. We also have a YouTube channel for Hands of Change, and we have an Instagram channel for Hands of Change. So if you go to my website, you can get on my mailing list. If you want, I think you can do that from the Hands of Change website also, or else you can get in touch with us directly and we can put you on our mailing list.
And please feel free to post on my timelines as well. I wound up with 2 accounts because of there was a problem with Facebook, and I opened up a second account. So either one, please feel free. And if you feel comfortable doing that, just PM me the information and I will share it. Okay,
thanks so much. This has been delightful. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. And thanks to all who are listening. In our time, this should be on either by midnight or by midnight tomorrow. Until next time, joyous journeys and amazing adventures. Good night, everyone.